We're good.
Okay. We're pretty well 4 o'clock, so they gonna call the meeting to order at 4 o'clock, November 29th. At 4 p.m. We'll start with roll call. Dave? Yep. Robert? Yep. Brent? Yep. I don't see Carol. John? You. Norm, I'm here. Bill? Here. I don't see Christine. There's Todd. Here. I don't see, Pete's here. Here. And we're missing Tracy. Okay, we need to have a approval of the minutes from last meeting.
I approve of that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, how about our financial report? We need approval of the financial report.
It is exactly the same as last month. We've not had any new invoices come in. I know there's one coming for the additional testing on Birch Bay.
Have you received that, George, at all yet or no?
No, I have not. Make a motion to approve the financial report.
Okay. I'll second that. Bill and John, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that takes us back down to public comments before the meeting. Any public comments before the meeting?
Nothing's been submitted to us yet.
Okay, nothing online. George, you want to give us any updates on your permits that we,
Yes, I will. Last Wednesday, before the holiday, I went out and took the samples for PAH and BOD, and also a 6 complete sample site, a new site down at FAR. And I have ordered the jars, scientific collection jars, gotten those in. So I was held up for about 2 weeks prior to that, weighing those and labeled everything, got it shipped off from UPS Thursday afternoon to arrive Monday morning, first thing down Brighton, and I'm waiting to hear those results. But I did get notice today that will actually complete everything for part tested clean on all the previous tests. We're ready to go with that. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. There'll be public notice, of course. But I did get notice today from Eagle that our permit to this point now for Birch is approved.
Okay.
It's gone out for public comment. Tim had talked about it before with all of us here, that we send a notice, a postcard or something, say, hey, if you got any questions, give us a call.
Yep.
You know, either here or at our office, the LIPA office, you know, kind of. Well, I'll just say I had someone come in who's having a seawall built next to their property yesterday. The notice they got was so generic. They said, what does this mean?
didn't understand it.
And so I signed into our account and did a search. I found that permit and was able to, everything I completed on the permit, for instance, for Birch, is a link on that permit for what they were doing. And so I was able to get the overhead and printed it off for them. I said, this is the detail of what you're going to get, of what is going to happen on that permit. So anybody who gets this notice on our permit will have that same opportunity if they choose to look at it. So this is a good thing. That means it passed through all the departmental regulations, if you will, at Eagle, at least at the district level. And public notice is going to be going out, and it's a 20-day quiet period, basically.
Can we put something on my Polish website and possibly there as well, to
Well, I
show them how to get the information if they're not understanding what that letter means?
Well, they're gonna get this document right here, and it tells them what to do if they wish to do it. I don't have a
think it'd be
problem.
bad idea to put on the website, because people get things in the mail, they don't read it, and.
I don't have a problem calling each one of them. I know them all. So, you know, I don't have a problem with that. There's, I think, 16 people
How many
So,
yards is this for?
hmm,
Under 10 for both of them combined.
Well, that's what I, but we got both of them or just birch?
no, just birch. I'm waiting to get,
So,
I'm waiting to get this one. The approved permit back, and then I'm gonna submit par.
but the yardage,
Cubic yards for birch was 9,300.
okay.
Yeah, he even said, well, that's good, you're under 10.
Yeah.
So,
And it appears at first blush, it sounds like they're treating them separate.
well, that's what we want them to do, is treat them separately. But I did find some terminology that I believe I shared with Tim. When I was doing birch, it asked if there were any other projects within this same body of water. I don't remember the terminology they used. Or there are other existing permits, something like that, to where they can say, hey, well, let's just combine them. So I think once we get birch approved in our hands, then we do the par, and then I can say, yes, there is, and reference it. But when they see the test results and everything for par, which there's no issues at all, and it's a lot smaller project.
Right.
That I think it's gonna slide right through. It'll still have public comment, but
Sure.
it'll go quick.
Good, sort of.
Tim, did you send out your postcards?
Not yet, no.
You know when those will go?
I can mail them tomorrow. I was waiting to hear back from what they said after we submitted those second tasks, whether or
Yeah,
not.
we kind of needed this to engage that, so.
And the bottom samples that you and I and Brent did all came back.
100% clear.
Okay, you said it was 20-day comment period? Is there another step beyond the comment period? Once they get those comments back, if nobody has objections or concerns, or there should be,
I'm hoping it's gonna go pretty quick after that, yes.
okay, just so everybody else is aware, we do have a meeting next week with a couple of contractors to try to get our feet wet and let them look at Birch Bay and see what we're going to ask them to do. We have not given them an RFQ for a proposal, because we did not have a permit approved to say we could do something. But Tim reached out to a number of contractors to ask if they wanted to come see what the lake looks like when it's down, where we may want to store the material while it dries, and then after it's dry, where the material would go to be permanently set down after it's been dried out. I think you said you had two, Tim?
Yeah, last I checked with Savin and Malley were the two that had.
There's three now.
Oh, three now?
Yeah, there's Pat McGurk, Malley, and Savin.
Okay, so if we get our permit back, those three will have seen the area prior to bidding, but we will send out a notice to other contractors, and I think Tim's gonna post it on Morning Sun and on the website. Then we'll have more contractors come back, and we give them a specific line by line request of what we wanna to dredge, or how many cubic yards, where it goes, the whole process, so it's a fair bidding process for everybody. And hopefully that happens quickly after a 20-day comment period. You have on your list here, Tim, about the Village Lagoon property, do you have an update of?
Yeah, so the village council met last Tuesday night. One of the items that they formally discussed was whether or not the village would be agreeable, if necessary, to use the lagoon site. The council voted to authorize that, so when it comes time to the disposal, if that needs to be something on the Birch Bay or any future permits, we are making that property available as a site, so.
Do you know how many cubic yards?
I think
Those pits?
both of those combined, my rough calculations were gonna hold almost exactly what we were looking at, like 180 to 185,000.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
And up to this point, the test you sent, they're proved clean, those would not have to go into a deep restricted property, correct?
Yeah, that's the important point there, that for any of these where they wanna either landfill it or deed restrict the final home for it, to us, that makes sense to use that property as opposed to truck it somewhere offsite for more money and more money for disposal.
Right.
We can use this, keep the cost down and do more work is our thought on it, so.
So you'd end up using the water both if necessary.
Potentially, and there's part of a third one that's started to have been excavated. That'd probably be the first one to fill up is that,
The first one when you pull in,
yeah, the triangle shaped pit.
Yep.
Yeah,
we'll pop the trees like I thought. Did a word or verbiage from the Eagle that if we do store at the lagoon property, it has to be lined with anything?
No.
But even if it has so many parts per million over what some of their septic thresholds are, we wouldn't have to line it, we just have to restrict it, is that? You
And
understand?
that's what I would think, yes. Cause
I mean, we're not
they
talking
only
mercury or
take-
anything like that, we're not talking heavy metals, so.
at least in Birch, we had test point 3 failed in selenium. Came back at 910, and I believe the cutoff is 400 parts per million.
But just one hole on it, it's not big.
But it's a column. It's not what we're exposing. So I think the waters group would be, if that selenium was high on what we're getting ready to
They don't want to
expose,
expose it.
that would be the question mark. Will they allow us to go that deep, kind of thing?
So that's the reason that I do bottom test.
And so that's where that bottom test makes sense.
Yeah.
And since it's in the column, yeah, I don't know how it's gonna end up. This is the first one like this, you know, so I don't know the end result. I do know that, from Randy Eaglesider's perspective, it's good.
Okay.
If it goes on to another department, the waters division or something like that, and they say, no, I don't know about that.
I mean, we don't know if they're gonna say, because how many holes did you bore?
6.
6, so it's 1 out of 6.
Right.
But we don't know if it's for the whole, they average it out or what, right? We don't know.
We don't know that. And honestly, what it may come down to is, and granted, we haven't submitted them yet,
Mhm.
but, through the permit vehicle. But when you add up birches, so there's 12 tests, 6 times 2. You add up pars, there's 12 tests, there's 6 times 2. There's 22 tests down at Peninsula Drive we did. The river we did 14 more. So you start adding all those up into one giant, and you have 4 fails out of all of those.
About 40.
Yeah,
Yeah, is that good then, or is it
right,
bad?
right, we just don't
I
know.
don't know that yet.
Yeah,
So-
we don't know, okay.
Okay, so we covered our village lagoon property, everything. Is great news on that front. We had a discussion about future subcommittees last time, Dave, do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts or concerns or?
Well, since the millage question did say that we were going to restore as well as we could, a portion of that money was to be spent on restoring the fishery. And having those kinds of things, investigating stuff, and I think it's about a time I would encourage us to think about forming a subcommittee so that when it does come time for that, they've got time to get all the ducks in a row, explore what kinds of things are possible, what other places have done, how much it costs roughly, and all those things, if it's done in stages, if you could create bedding areas, all those kinds of things that could be possible that we simply don't know about. And if we had a subcommittee working on that, it wouldn't be real arduous, but that would relieve us from having to have at least they could report to us, this is what we found out.
I'll put my name in that hat, because I generally enjoy fishing, and I'll try to maybe make a phone call or an email to somebody at the Fishers and say, okay, we're hoping to dredge the lake, after we're done, we'd like to put, whether it's riprap, whether it's submerged timbers or fish cribs,
And
whatever.
that's what I wanna do, though. I wanna have the committee come up with that kind of thing that's possible, so we look like we're an organized person or group of people that say,
Right.
okay, this is what we know can happen.
And I don't think it'll be an issue to whoever's doing the dredging when they get done. If they have a plan, the DNR approved it, they can grab the
Right,
stone or the timber
Right.
and move it with their equipment. I mean, we
Right.
can add to
right.
their dredging quote.
I would just like to know what it entails.
Possible.
Yeah,
I know that George and I looked at it years ago. And they weren't really in favor of some of the cribs and things we talked about doing because
at that time.
it does give them some protection. But it also, people know where that is installed and everybody wants, just like the bridge. Everybody wants to fish right there because there's fish there. So they had some
It's a structure.
apprehension about that. So
They,
But,
Maybe
but,
if you
but if
scatter it
you
out,
spread
do
it out
correct.
and you have certain places and they're,
mean,
I'm not so
We
sure we
paid
couldn't
money,
even.
we paid money to stock walleye. A lot of them run the river to spawn,
Right,
but walleyes will spawn on a reef too. They do in Saginaw Bay, and Lake Erie, or Lake Huron and Great Lakes. So maybe there's potential to do something.
well, and we don't know whether or not you can say you can't fish in this area for
I don't
years.
think you can.
I don't know,
no,
but we don't
We're
know.
not a public lake. I mean, we're
Right.
still open to the rules of the state of Michigan, so.
It would be nice to know whether or not they've done that before, where they said, oh yeah, they're gonna try to get this population restarted.
I don't think they do. They just tell you that this is your, we'll find out.
Yes, that's what I want to know.
This is your closed season across the board and.
Yep.
That's what
well, I will tell you,
With cribs on Higgins Lake, they actually threw them out on the ice. So when the ice melted. Yep.
I will tell you that I asked the engineers, or asked the state when we met with them, what, 2 years ago now?
Yeah,
When we were at the meeting down in Lansing. And I said, will we be allowed to put in structure like table and chain logs together to make a place for these, the new hatches while we're doing this project? New hatches to be able to hide and get away from predators. And, he said, I don't know, he was some biologist, he said, well, I'm glad you worded it like that because otherwise it's just a fishing structure and everybody's gonna go catch them there.
Right,
He said, if you wanna do something like that, you need to hire an engineer. And they need to tell you where to put it. And so,
I would think there's somebody within, a biologist within the fisheries division that would help you with that. Maybe
oh,
not.
I'm sure they
well,
will.
see, the subcommittee could be a liaison too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Your
thinking of.
recommendation.
And we do have people in the community that speak science and biology.
Yeah.
One sitting there.
when we met with
I
the
don't know
tribe,
here.
they were supportive of that effort. And
Yes.
said they had suggestions on how to accomplish that end
I
goal.
think one of the items they did say was it had to be below a certain depth, so there could never be a prop strike.
Hmm.
Which limit come out of this lake. So you're, I mean,
We're gonna put it up
Unless
by the
because
dam.
of that, if you're going to do that, you can take that area deeper on a dredging permit, because we don't know.
I'll ask, I don't, but I think before they told us we couldn't go back beyond. Which what it was in the sixties.
Well, I do know that in the seventies, used to catch brown trout out of this lake, because we did it.
We thought brook trout was
Right.
when they walked out of one of the creeks, but they're not gonna live, but they were, they've been there. Okay, like I said, I'll do some research on that and I'll bring that back to the next meeting.
Okay, do you want anybody else to be on that committee?
Sure, whoever wants to donate, they're gonna do some research.
It'd be nice to have somebody from the outside. the
They could be
community.
anything, they could put it on both websites.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people in the fishery that would wanna get involved in it. When we did the fish docking, we had a dozen people show up when we were doing that, so maybe go do more. Okay, so George, do you wanna talk more about the meet and greet next week?
That's gonna be held, over at the LIPOA office at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. And, I mean, any of you or our public is free to come, of course. But it's more so to have the contractors that are interested in the project, possibly bidding it, be able to review and see, especially now that we're in drawdown, what it is they gotta tackle. And ultimately, over there, if you were to go to the boat launch, everything that's still, I'll just say wet, if you will, is what we're talking about removing. And so, it's a good opportunity for them to get an idea. And it's, at this point, it's fairly simple, you know, here's the print. It's 300 feet wide by 400 feet and then 200 feet wide by 400 feet. That's 36 inches deep. This is 24 inches deep. We're gonna store it right here. We'll get the silt fences up here. You haul it off in the spring after it dries out. What's it gonna cost? Basically all it is. And, but it's 9,300 cubic yards. So,
And I know that,
you know, it's gonna be fairly simple, but it'll give them they'll be able to view it.
so we would have had another little item to the agenda if I can. We talked about the RFP process.
Yes. Yes.
Do we want to try to write something for next week for that? I mean, do we want to get something started about insurance requirements? I think part of that stuff was in the work we've already done, but insurance or bonds, completion times, it's hard to give them a completion time. Fill up the water.
I wasn't worried about getting that ready before that meeting, because that's something you're gonna present with your proposal when you ask for the bids.
Yeah, I mean, it's potentially, you could be at that point in 20 days. So I'd like to have that document.
Work on it.
Well, that would be a requirement when they submit their bid.
We have.
They have to have liability and, you know, insurance, just like when I hire somebody, it's over $600.
I know Tim probably has a template for the construction that's been done in the village.
And we also have a professional services agreement type template that talks about indemnity and general liability, vehicle, because these are gonna be on the road, you know, those type of things.
Yeah, so like all that stuff, you know, the additionally insured and
Yeah.
then patients that we have to have all that fully.
Workers' comp.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. If you've got an avenue started for that, we can probably fast track that, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
No,
Terribly.
I don't think it's gonna be terribly hard to put together a bid packet.
That's December 1st.
So we got, have we got any feedback on how they're gonna kind of judge, like, what the original depths are? Cause like on the map on the website, pretty vague for first part. I don't know how they're gonna, I mean, mine is 4 foot here and 9 foot here, I don't,
Yeah, with a little,
we could be somewhere in the middle.
well, what it comes down to is when I was out there with the sand auger. And you're going through the column, it's soft material, you know, you're taking it out and saving it. When you hit the bottom, you know it. It's a hard pan. And when you bring the auger up, it's sand with maybe a little material on top, sediment. So you know, or they will know, based really, ultimately, I even showed it to Larry when we did FAR last week. When you're hitting that hard pan, they'll be able to see it on a blade, for instance. What's interesting about this is when I referenced 24 inches in the western side of the bay, it's not really 24 inches now, because once it's dewatered, it compresses.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when it had water in it, yeah, it's gonna be muck and clay and everything this thick. But right now, it's this thick. So ultimately, they're gonna be taking out less. It's still gonna be probably the same volume, or close to it, but it's gonna still be very heavy. So you know, unless you use a transit, I really don't know how you would know.
Gotta just be an average, because like I said, on the edge
Yeah,
of the pool, you're gonna start at nothing, and it's gonna gradually get deeper till you get to
Yeah,
the deepest
when
spot.
you're out in the middle, it's
Yeah, take the
thicker,
vegetation,
of
whether
course,
it's the river,
shallow
the
and
lake,
thicker.
whatever, it's gonna change.
How are we gonna work in the wiggle a little bit? Say we're talking about 9,000 cubic yards and it ends up being
8,
That's, yeah, or 12, or 12, you know, I mean, how do we?
We can't go 12, your permit's not good.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's why I was kind of doing some measurements, I don't know, I don't think we can take out that much dirt anywhere. I think we have more than
They'll know
enough.
when they load the truck unless they're hauling off, so they're gonna just do a head count on the trucks, basically.
well, if it gets to be close to that, and I'm not sure how you judge it, to the 9,000 cubic yards, which is
They
on
can tell you
under
how much that
10.
bucket is.
Those guys do that for a living, we can measure, like you said,
Right, they can figure that out, sure. We don't want to, I'll just say that, we don't want to violate the permit. Because that will throw all the rest of them askew.
Yep.
So if we get to that point and we need a revision. Okay, that's different. We have to apply for that revision, but if not, we need to stay under it.
We can have something written into our proposal, request for proposal. You know, up to 9,000 yards, whatever your number was.
Do you have any idea how they're gonna start? They're gonna start at the sides and work towards the middle?
I
or
wouldn't say it has to
they're
be
gonna
able to not get stuck,
Yeah.
but that's a question we can ask them.
Right. start- Right, that's what I mean, those are the kind of things we have.
Based on
to
their equipment, doesn't know how to handle
Deep
They do
spot.
it, they do it for a living. Good. What'd you come up with your calculation?
I was just doing some rough estimates, I mean, on a yardage calculator. I mean, if you take 500 feet long by 200 feet wide, you can go down 2 foot, and that's only 7,400 yards. So if we take out 9,000 yards, that's a lot of dirt, I mean, that bay is gonna be clean. It's gonna be
It's gonna be pretty clean, yeah.
I just didn't know, because our original depth of the lake map, like probably the only thing we have on record to go by, is pretty vague in that bay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know
Well, I
how hard this hard pan is, I mean, with big excavators, you can feel it in the shovel, but you know, if you got
You drive over it, it's pretty loose.
Yeah.
well, I mean, if you got a huge excavator and you're digging, it's got a 5-yard bucket on it, you're not gonna notice that hard pan unless it's a rock or clay.
Well, yeah,
But undisturbed soil is gonna dig like butter, they're not gonna,
well, the 2 feet on the western side, you will be into the hard pan. I figure that, on average, that bay is, because as it goes towards the lake, it's about 6 feet. So maybe it's 5.5, but, because we're down 6 feet and the bay is dewatered all the way to the end, basically.
But we need to make sure that whatever we do, it's all approved and it moves forward. Whatever area of yours, I don't remember how many areas maybe we had, but whatever area they're doing, there cannot be a hole back inside that bay that's gonna have water in it. The fish can't get back out.
Get back out.
So if they have a hole that's 5 feet deep or 6 feet deep or 7 feet deep back by the boat ramp, there's got to be some type of a channel to lead back out to the river channel so that whoever's in there can get out.
that would be nice to do, you know, if we could do that, go 6 foot up the boat launch and then have a channel right in the middle.
Gotta get that-
Everything slopes to that channel.
Yep, have it slope. Mhm.
That'd be ideal.
And George, I know people that weren't at our last meeting, we talked about the ramp, we had issues with the extended. And we talked about possibly getting the dirt out behind that concrete and letting that concrete hinge down so that people with their pontoon boats that are on float-on trailers can get them off.
Mhm.
And to do that, you're gonna have to make that area, you're gonna have to get into the hard pan in that spot, but
Yeah.
there's no sense of having a boat ramp if people can't use it.
That honestly, at the time that was built, that was on hard pan. That was sand underneath there.
Well, boats aren't 16 feet long, so you know, that-
Yeah,
pontoons everywhere, but-
but like what you suggested is you cut it. And I don't know, I was thinking about this today, and you said you cut it, just like drop?
We have to pin it somehow with a rebar or something to keep it from sliding.
Well,
Yeah.
exactly, but, and this is what I was gonna ask. Can that be cut and then lifted, for instance, at the far end, tipped up
On a piece of machine, yeah.
and lifted up and take a fire hose or something, pressure wash
Fire hose.
underneath it, hydraulic, clean it out, then set it back down to get, because it's going out flat now, to get that more tip,
I'm sure you can,
something like that.
I'm sure you can.
Or after you lift it and break it, you just report.
Sounds like Brad and Al's problem, or.
Asking them to do it.
Yeah. This is what we wanna do, you guys, whatever's easier and cheaper, do it that way.
I don't know if that is covered with our dredge fee, or is that something that LiPo was
We
going?
still, well, our permit is still open on that. We don't have to pay for another permit on that.
Okay.
The work that happens to that, yes, that will have to be paid for, whether it be in addition to this.
But we still have lake bottom restoration money if we needed to use that, and if we fall under the verbiage of the dredge, we have, the LiPo would have money to do it if we need to.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any conversation about the meeting and where we're at so far, or do you wanna move on to public comments?
Time was that meeting? Was it morning?
1:30.
1:30.
Or 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
1 p.m.
Are we down 6 foot right now? All the way? I was gonna try to send the drone up this weekend and get before photos. A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially birch.
Yep.
And get some good, different pictures.
Good aerial shots,
More detailed photos.
and you can, it'd be good to send them up down there at the south end too.
Well, that'll definitely help with the permit for the bidding process, but have that, you can see it all.
Picture.
Start the river and come all the way down through and get it all. So we've got a document of it. So then it'll also let us know next year if it
Changes.
changes. You can compare last year's notes to this year's notes. Okay, well, that brings us to the public comments. Anybody in the audience have a comment? We just have to state your name.
Yeah, Kim Fox. I'm sort of just, and I apologize, I wasn't able to make the last, meeting on Tuesday. You might have covered all this, but it's on the lagoon. Are the DNR wouldn't consider these wetlands then? So you've already looked at
They're pretty
that?
much saying they were constructed for
Settling.
Septic.
settling ponds for the septic system, so they were designed.
Clay basin.
Okay, so they wouldn't be considered wetlands. I'm just bringing up questions that came in.
Understood.
So they're not needed for any rain runoff that we had like in, I think it was 2017 or anything. So
They were just
they're
constructed, if we ever got our
sewers
system
that
put in,
they had.
Has failed.
Okay, and the last, if you put it in, I don't know if there's any, don't know if you wanna do it, or if you're thinking about doing a retest just before those soils went back in. Just so you know, nothing was contaminated, so if everybody came back and said something was in there, hey, here's the test, it wasn't there. I don't know if you need to do it, that'd probably be a DEQ.
That's something we can ask the Eagles if they require.
Or you
it.
might not wanna ask them, but
Yeah,
I
but I,
mean.
but I
you
think
know.
after the work out,
Yeah, you got it before, and then, like, before they haul it over here,
right?
maybe
I mean,
take a
who's to
sample.
say that it doesn't leach in from a farm field after our dirt, it's hard to have a pinpoint. It came from us, if we tested it, we have a document that said we had this material tested and was cleared. How did it get here, you know?
Right,
I think that,
Well, I will tell you that the test result. Permits are good for 5 years with the state,
mhm,
and they're open for 5 years. We can do anything for 5 years on those and not get another one. And test results are good for 10. So any material that is found today, they're assuming it's gonna be there for the next 10 years. Any material that isn't found there today is not gonna be there in 10 years either. So I don't think the state would require a retest, you know, for your own personal judgment or whatever. Yeah, I suppose you could do
I
things like
understand.
that. It's not
I understand
necessary,
where
but
it's coming from, it's just
yeah,
make sure we're not looking over our shoulder in 10 years.
right, right.
it would just be the last test before you put it in, that's all, but that was just a thought. You guys are happy with it? Okay, thanks, that's all I got.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question. Is the cubic yards that have been removed, is that after it dries or is that as it's coming out?
I think it's gonna have to be as it comes out because they're actually handling that material as they're doing it.
So that includes the water that's trapped in that, and then when that
it'll be less cubic yards, I believe, in the spring to move again.
Sure.
But I think,
Yes.
I'm not sure how you quantify what you took out, let's say in December, as to what you move in April. I mean, maybe it rains all winter, and it's just as wet in spring, I don't know. But I mean, how much how much do you think it settles?
A lot.
A lot,
Right,
It's probably gonna lose 50% of its volume.
50%.
so that would be a question, I guess, if you were to ask, you know,
Once they.
is
issue
it
the
dry
permit,
material or is this newly excavated material for our calculation? I think it's, as it's excavated.
I think they
have
That's what they-
excavated.
I can ask them.
That's how they did their calculation.
Yeah, it's as it is.
And I think that's how we have to apply to the permit is what we're planning on doing, not what happens and dries out after the fact. Think about the actual hydraulic dredging system and how they do that. That's gonna be 75% water that's gonna be getting
Oh,
pumped.
yeah, at least.
You know, and into that position, to that retaining facility, that's gonna have to sit there for quite a while and dry.
Yeah, those bags are still full up in Farwell. In that mill pond. Whatever that
Mhm.
is. Anybody else have questions? Okay, so additional committee discussion, anybody have anything else they wanna?
Tim, did you wanna bring up the, account? How to set that up?
We have started to have some internal discussions on how we think it's gonna be best to do the accounting for the millage money once it rolls in, because obviously we haven't received any of that.
Mhm.
And the initial discussions that we have, are that we think it probably would be the best solution to open an account at a different bank than our regular checking is with. So we use Isabella Bank for
Separated.
not only just to separate it, but also to add that extra layer of FDIC coverage to that money. So the custodial risk on our funds go up to 250,000. We actually have more than that in the bank, so we have to do CDs and these other type of things with other institutions to keep that money protected. This way, we could shift that money over to a separate bank, maybe Mercantile, Independent Bank, Lake Trust. That would have its own account, it'd have its own ability to easily track, these are the expenditures directly to that, and we would transfer the money from the taxes every month when we do our accounting. So the millage is gonna be collected on the summer tax bill, so we do the July reconciliation, we would transfer from Isabella Bank to that account. August, same thing. That way that account would also bear its own interest. And if we had any type of proceeds from the sale of dredge materials, that's an easy place to put that back into, so it's never commingled with our regular checking account money.
True.
So-
Yeah, we don't wanna commingle.
Good idea.
I guess you mentioned about dredge. Oils sale or whatever. How would we ever? Come up with? How that would work, how would that scenario work? And I can see people wanting it for their garden, flower garden, whatever.
Well,
There has to be something set in stone that Joe didn't stop by and got a truckload because there was only pickup, he just loaded it and went, and next time gets charged.
I was thinking more bulk sales, so if you had a couple of thousand cubic yards that Morgan Composting wanted to take off your hand, something like that, as opposed to, we're going out with 5 gallon buckets and getting it for our garden.
Peninsula.
I think George checked with Morgan and they wanted it, but they didn't want to truck it.
They wanted us to deliver it.
Okay.
Well, sure,
So
me too.
Me too.
if that doesn't work. Because of the cost of trucking to get it there.
Yeah.
I don't, and ask everybody here, I don't have a problem if residents want it.
No, I don't
I
either.
mean, the more that we can
Get rid of.
get rid of, the less we have to pay to move.
If it's on our village property, yes. If it ends up being in an impoundment on someone else's property,
No.
then we'll probably even lose the rights to material at that point. Or that'll be probably part of the deal
So let's
of being on that property.
throw out a hypothetical. The first one you're doing is birch. You got a pile of birch bark.
Got a pile in Birch and a pile in Travell, 2 locations.
What if somebody wanted to come take it from there?
I've had it. But you're gonna have a key. Cause it's gonna be locked. Gotta be a member.
But I don't know what that does to you liability wise.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, from the association standpoint, you would definitely wanna think about access and any damage to the property from any type of like equipment. That could be a trip hazard, that could be a fall hazard. You know, there's a lot of risks that you would assume at that point in time with just a free for all come get your dirt, like it's sand and dirt.
Yeah. And then neighbors will be bringing their tractors down and driving all over the neighborhood and it'll be happening like that. It's probably not the best idea.
Could you delegate like a day, like a Saturday?
That might be a great
Maybe
idea.
find out a couple hours, or maybe somebody from volunteers their time to kind of make sure somebody ain't out there whipping donuts.
That's
Well,
right.
if you possibly, if the contractors are moving it that day, maybe they don't want to deal with either because it slows them down. I just think it's a benefit to the community if they could use it, but it's kind of hard to get organized.
Well, we got time to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if there's no other discussions, when do we want to meet next? Have our meeting next week.
Six on Wednesday.
Third, right, yeah.
And getting home to, or getting into the whole Christmas holiday and the January thing. There is much on. You wanna do something in the week of the 18th? Wanna go that far out? Well, I want to do the beginning to see where it's going.
Yeah, sure.
But we want to meet on Wednesdays, so you could do the 10th and the 17th of January.
10th will be a board meeting. 7.
I just think if you get your approval in 20 days, you probably want to meet here again to speed this process along. I'm not saying you're gonna have it by then, but with all the holiday stuff, it's probably gonna bother.
I know it could bog it down a little bit. Well, what I can do is,
When we can set it for the 17th, if you get your permit approved, we can change it.
we can always pull forward.
Okay, so you wanna do the 17th at 4 p.m.? Yeah, that's Wednesday, then. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
17th,
For
December, January.
January.
Sooner we could. Put that.
Yeah, I'm not certain it will, but
We could be surprised.
Well, how much, let me ask you this, how much notice would everybody need? Let's say I get it back in 22 days. It's gonna be the week right before Christmas, the end of the week before Christmas. Is the rest of the month kind of a bad time then?
well, my feeling is the only thing you have, if you get your permit approved, the only thing you're gonna have to do is get your RFP together and try to get that out to the potential contract. You should probably have some type of a meeting just to go over.
Because I can let everybody know, of course, through email.
Well, I think if Tim has a request or proposal that he's been using before throughout the village, I don't think it would be very hard to send that document out via email, put on get everybody's thoughts, concerns, modify that, and say, okay, this is our final draft. Could you do a vote by email that way or no?
No.
So if you get the final draft, we could have a quick meeting, have, try to get a majority before we have a quorum. You come in and say, okay, this is what we all talked about on email, now we're gonna try to ratify this and just send out the door.
Well,
The link is down now, and if we have the chance to do it, I just don't wanna push this until you know, March when it could be full of water again, because that was.
Exactly.
No, I mean.
Well, let's wait and see what happens instead of. I guess we don't need to pick it apart yet. Let's see what notice I get. And you're right, it may be after the first of the year now.
Well, how about Tim, if you send out. You know, that PDF of what you're thinking, and we can work on that through emails and get it closer to that finishing
Well,
point
that's
before we
true.
have to make a move.
Pre-work it a little bit. Yeah.
Know more about what we want, after we talk to some of the contractors next week, they may come on and say this is. Oh, maybe they don't say anything, they don't want their potential. Competition, but they may have ideas of how this can be done more efficiently. They may have questions about things that we want to put into the document.
We don't wanna tell them how to do it.
No,
not really.
We just wanna tell them what we want for end result
Yeah, basically,
and how we're gonna pay it.
Very important.
let them be innovative.
Yeah, see, I'd say best case, we would get it back on the 15th of December.
Well, if you get back, that changes things, but I think we'll have our meeting and Tim can send out the.
Yep.
The document as a living document, we can make changes to it, and then if we have any further input from the contractors that do show up. Like they'll say, let them figure out the way to do it. One guy might have a great idea and he's half the price of somebody else.
Yeah.
It's, you know, good for him, you know what I mean? So. Okay, well, I'm fine with keeping it for the 17th. If you get your approval back, we'll have to move forward and pick the date that everybody can try to live with over the holidays. The best date,
Right now, we're cut in for December 17th.
January.
January.
Get the approval back, whether we'll have a hard time thinking it's gonna come. I think anybody works for government does too much work the next month.
Hey now.
Or any month.
Except for Tim.
Make sure I don't plow in front of your house there.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions or concerns. We'll adjourn the meeting at 4:45.